Our next speaker is Glen Gobin, Treasurer for the Tulalip Tribes. Glen.
I had to give a hug because that's what Billy would have done. And I think many of you know that because that's why you're here today. To in some way give back those hugs back to the family, to help give them that strength, that encouragement that Billy gave each and every one of us. I want to thank the family for the honor to be able to stand up here today, to share some words, to share some feelings, to share some history. I have to think that I was asked to speak not just because I was a Tulalip Tribal Board of Director, but because of the past relationships with my father and our past chairman, Stan Jones Shohalem, that's out here. My father's gone. Shohalem is here, still with us yet today. And he quit going to funerals. But he's here today to stand with the family in honor, respect for his friend, his brother. And I wanted to recognize you, Stan, for that. You know, there have been many great stories told, remembrances so far today that talked about Billy and his battles and his struggles, his wins, his losses, his spirit to never give up, to always keep going, to pick up the sword and keep moving forward. I think about the building that we're in here today, how many times it's filled up for a rock star that's in here performing. Billy's our rock star. We're here full. He's been our warrior. He's been our advocate. He's been our speaker. He's been our motivator. He's been the one that pushes us out forward. He's the one that picks us back up. He's the one that says, calm down a little and stay the course. I've seen Billy since I got to know him, and it was prior to the Bolt decision during the court case. And they'd come up at various times, be in my parents' house, talking about legal issues and how to move forward. And Billy would always remember my mother. And he'd always, every time I'd see him and we'd get to talking, and I remember how your mom always took care of us. She always took care of us. And you think about what that means, because back in 1973, what did tribes have? We had each other. We didn't have much more. We had fish and salmon out there that we were fighting to get back to the reservation where we could hopefully take part in a fishery. I remember growing up at a time when the fish were coming in the 60s. And we're all anticipating these fish coming in. And just before they'd hit our area, we'd be shut down for conservation issue. Fish were all gone. We lost our opportunity. So the battle that these leaders won at that time, with Billy in the lead, his determination, brings us here today in many ways. This facility would not be possible without the support and foundation to bring our tribal sovereignty back to the forefront through the winning of the Bolt decision. We are not just gaming tribes. We're a fishing people. This is a result of the Bolt decision. When I read my name on the agenda to speak, I was quite surprised. and I thought about what I might say, what you might bring forward. And just like many of you, it's like a whirlwind of memories that come out. Whirlwind of memories of Billy at various times in your life, but also in your parents' life, or your uncles, or your tribal leaders' lives, and to watch them work together. I saw leaders battle the federal government, battle the state, battle the counties, battle the local jurisdictions, and battle each other sometimes. But the thing that we learned most from these leaders was they found a way to make a decision. One of Billy's greatest battles he was still dealing with was one amongst ourselves, to stop us from going to court and letting the federal government or some other court system define who we are as sovereign people. Billy's dream was that we need to do it ourselves. We need to sort our differences out amongst ourselves. No federal court knows our values. No federal court truly knows our issues. We know them. We need to settle them ourselves. And stay the hell out of that federal court is what he would tell us. They are not our friend. How many times have we heard that? Over and over again. We can all think we remember Billy's favorite saying. Billy had many favorite sayings. And he had many choice words. And it was acknowledged. Whenever you saw Billy, it was either, ah, damn, there's my boy, or there's my girl. And you'd get that big hug, and you'd get that welcome like you had not seen him for some time. And if you got up to speak, or one of those people that he just greeted would get up to speak and share some words, Billy would say, that's our guy, that's our gal. And he would give you the 2 thumbs up. Always encouraging. My daughter Cecilia, her Indian name is Zazalak. She went to work for the Northwest Indian Fish Commission last year. Been there over just a year as a policy advisor. And she talked about what she should do. Should she go to work for Tulalip? And I said, you have an opportunity to go work with an icon, to learn from Billy firsthand, to work day in and day out and learn from what he's got. I would seize the opportunity. I would take that opportunity and go and gather as much as you can. Because as much as we want everybody to be here forever, we know that our time is limited. We just don't know when. Billy wasn't planning to exit. He was planning to go to work. And he worked for his people literally until the day he passed. It isn't often that I read anything, probably because I have a hard time reading. But my daughter wrote this, because when I was thinking about what to say, there's so much to encapsulate, which is totally impossible to do, about what Billy has meant. But she did a good job from a young person's perspective, and I just wanted to read this. This was the day that Billy had passed. I know the gathering on this side will be great in number, from his beloved family and fellow Nisqually people, to the leaders that fought beside him over the decades, and to the new younger generation that he helped bring up through the ranks. We all knew Billy in our own unique way. His heart and his presence had a way of attracting people, young and old, from all walks of life. His passion inspired us. His love encouraged us, and his words push us on. Stay the course. With such news, it is hard not to be caught frozen in our tracks, to have our everyday abruptly halted in a way that only death can command. Words are spoken a little softer and shared with much thought and prayer. Tears flow when and where our own words escape us. Yet my mind still races. Caught up in pain and grief, my thoughts still wander to tomorrow, into the tomorrows that are still to come. Who will stay the course? Who will carry on this work? As I look into the hallways, I can hear the mix of tears and quiet whispers among the toils of work that somehow manage to catch moments of our attention in the midst of our initial shock and mourning. And it is here that I find my answer. The work remains, and those of us here today remain with it. Perhaps it is a result of leadership and the example that Billy gave to us all, day in and day out. But I find comfort in the tinges of work that try to muster on this morning. It is a show of the teachings and dedication that we have picked up along our lives' way, and a sign that for the time being, we will do what we know the best we know how. We will stay the course. For this next generation, there is no option. A lifetime memorialized by a single man, Billy Frank, has shown us that the question before us is not whether we continue the fight. Rather, the question is who. Who will continue this fight? The experience of our ancestors and relations that have walked this road before us demonstrates that if we as Indian people want our way of life to continue, we have to pick up the responsibilities that have now been left for us. It is rare to find a person amongst my generation that truly knows the history of the struggle and the sacrifice, let alone took precious time to come to understand it. It is easy to espouse the glamour aspect of this fight, to play defense, but how many of us are ready and willing to dig a little deeper? How many of us are willing to make self-sacrifices that are truly for our people, to set aside personal agendas and devote a lifetime of work that is for all people? As with all change, there is much to think about. For now, I am signing off with the words that he often left me with. The journey is long, travel safe, I love you. You know, it wasn't often I saw Billy speak from a piece of paper. Our elders taught us that ours is an oral tradition. And what made Billy such a great speaker, a communicator, was the fact that he spoke from his heart. He spoke from the things that he believed in. He spoke from the things that were left from his ancestors, instilled in him to bring forward. Billy did that to each and every one of us. Not a one of us will fill Billy's shoes. Not a one of us want to do that because it's impossible. But each and every one of us in here today carry a part of Billy's life. We shared his life with him, and it became part of us. His work will continue through all of us, and that is our job to do for the next generation. He left us with that challenge. What I say today in signing off, I'll say in our language. I say, Hoyok siab, Otokot siab. Farewell, Big Chief. Farewell, Big Chief. Have a safe journey home. Thank you.
Our next speaker also isn't on the program, but I'd like to introduce Scott Aiken from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for a brief presentation.
Yahweh, 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 where's your when open it knee, yo, yo, way, hi, ya, Yahweh, Yahweh, hi, ya, Yahweh, Yahweh, hey, Yahweh, yo. Thank you. Thank you for standing for my grandfather's song that he gave me. I'm Scott Aiken. I'm from the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation in Kansas, and I'm from the Fish Clan in my tribe, and my children are all named and given the Fish Clan. So the fish are of particular importance to my family. I stand before you today because, as has been mentioned here time and time again, humility is what Billy would bring to the table each and every time. And the Creator has put me here for this moment, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to add to the agenda for this moment. The presentation of this to Billy is something that I have been brought to only in the last 2 months. I used to work for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Prior to that, I was with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service here in the region. I've come back to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the national position of the National Native American Programs Coordinator. I say all that because my presentation here today is on behalf of the Director of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Dan Ash. That song I sang at the delisting of the bald eagle at the Jefferson Memorial in 2007. When that bald eagle was delisted, my family was present for that. And it was a tremendous honor, and I was tremendously humbled because I wasn't there. My grandfather was there. My mom, my grandma were there. My family was there singing that song when they delisted that eagle. And I sat there before Secretary Kempthorne, and I thought, wow, I never thought to be given this responsibility. And yet, the awe I felt at that moment to say that to my family at the delisting of the bald eagle, a great event in our nation's history, I stand before you today honored to present something even greater than that. On behalf of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, I have a presentation to give to Willie, his son. But before I do that, I want to share with you for just a moment why I am so honored to do this. I sat on the banks of the Nisqually River with Billy, and we looked at the river, and he said, you know, this river, it's great that they took the dikes down at the refuge, at the Nisqually Refuge. But he said, as long as that road is here, that freeway, these fish will not be free. And he said he always hoped, and he still has hope, that that freeway is no longer the blockage to the salmon. And his son was with us, Willie. And I saw when I looked at him, I've known him for 15 years. And when I saw the look in his eye, I looked at Willie and I recognized that this was going to be passed on. This responsibility was going to be passed on to those of us in this community who stand like I do in a place where we don't know how we got here, other than to be thankful to the Creator and be humble enough to say, I don't know what to do absent the wisdom that you give me, Creator. And I saw that in Willie's eyes as his dad was carrying this responsibility, and that someday he may have to carry that as well. So when I heard from Dr. Gary Morishima of the death and passing of Billy, Willie came to my mind first and foremost because we're of a similar age and we have a similar responsibility, a similar onus of caring for our children's children. And I asked the director, could I get an eagle feather FedExed out to me that I could give to the family? I could give it of my own. I have my own to give. But the service, Fish and Wildlife Service, can make the change known that is within that agency right now, to work with the community who has taught the Fish and Wildlife Service how to conserve, protect, and enhance fish and wildlife. So yesterday it was FedEx to me. You know, these are not ways that my grandfather would know about, but it's certainly ways that we know about today. But I'm thankful for this to come, and I offer this as a greater honor than I did at the delisting of that bald eagle to a man who I have great respect for, and I know that we all keep he and his family in our prayers for what they will carry forward on behalf of their father. And I offer also in our Potawatomi way, Sama, this is tobacco, in the joining of this feather and the tobacco for this great honor. Miigwech, thank you on behalf of Dan Ash, the director, myself, and people who work in federal government to do, to the best of their ability, the right thing when it's necessary, even when it's not popular. Miigwech.
Our next speaker is the chairperson for the Stillaguamish tribe, Sean Yanity.